Well, everyone, it's time for us to go and take a look at the Samsung Galaxy S23 Plus and compare it against the older Samsung Galaxy S9 Plus and see which specific phone is a better one for you. Now, I would probably make the argument that nobody should be buying an S9 Plus anymore, but let's go and see how they compare. If you want to pick up some of the newer phones I would recommend this year, links will be down in the description. You can get them from there. You can help support the channel at the same time. Now, starting off side by side, you can kind of tell that both phones are kind of roughly around the same size, but on the front of the S9 Plus, which came out in 2018, we do have a fairly large 6.2-inch dynamic Super AMOLED display. So not a dynamic, it's a Super AMOLED display, 1440p panel with a curved glass on the side. Now, I prefer the curved glass where you do have a little bit of bezel on the top and bottom considered nowadays. But I've said this before. I mean, I remember back in 2017 when the S8 Plus came out, it's the same thing that kind of looked like this. And I was thinking to myself, how could Samsung do better? Like, there's no way that you can make a better looking phone than this. And they ended up proving all this wrong in a way. But this panel is still fairly good, 60 hertz. But you can definitely tell it's a dated phone for sure. But there's still a lot of things. Like, I like that curved glass, and I do like the 1440p that we're getting on this type of display. Now, on the S23 Plus, this type of device, I mean, it just kills it. I mean, you have a 6.6-inch dynamic AMOLED display here. It's a 120 hertz panel. It's pretty much has it all. Now, it is a flat display, like I mentioned before, so we're not getting like that curved glass that we got on other devices. So this one is a flat display. On top of that, this one is also, I mean, this is 120 hertz to 60 hertz. Much better display you're getting here than on something like the S9 Plus. So now for the rest of the body, one other thing that's kind of interesting is the S9 Plus is actually, it's a curved side. So you're actually getting like a much thinner feeling phone on something like the S9 Plus over something like the S23 Plus. And that's always something that is kind of very interesting to a lot of people, including myself, that a phone like the S9 Plus feels much thinner than something like the S23 Plus. But that's just the way technology kind of goes sometimes. Now on the back, very interesting setups as well here. So with the S23 Plus, we had the triple camera setup all tucked away in the left corner. With the S9 Plus, the camera was right in the middle, but you had that fingerprint sensor right in this, like underneath the camera. That was a very, very interesting design choice. I'm glad they switched away from that eventually, but that was something that was very weird during that moment. So glass backs on both, but you are getting the frosted glass back on the S23 Plus, which I prefer a lot more. I prefer like frosted glass over that standard glass. So just something to keep in mind. Both of them have wireless charging and IP certification, but you do have reverse wireless charging and the S23 Plus. USB-C ports on the bottom. You're also getting a headphone jack on the S9 Plus and a microSD card slot, which is honestly very, very awesome for this type of device. So in terms of the outside, that kind of covers it up, to be honest. Now, in terms of the actual software and longevity, the S9 Plus has been unsupported for a long, long period of time. It's been many, many years since this thing has seen a software update. And that's just kind of what happens, and that's really the main reason I wouldn't recommend even thinking about getting a phone like this anymore, is because it's been unsupported for many, many years. So because of that, for the average person, I would recommend buying something like an S23 Plus, to be honest. But I think something like the S9 Plus for like I said, the average person, this is by far the better way to go. So in terms of that, that kind of covers it up there. Now let's go and do a speed comparison. The S9 Plus has that Snapdragon 845 chipset inside of it with 4 gigs of RAM, but it does go up to 6 gigs of RAM on some models. The S23 Plus has that Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset inside of it with 8 gigs of RAM. So let's go and see which one's the faster one between both. Okay, there we go. All the apps are cleared out in the background, so let's get into it. Let's do Play Store. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so of course it's not going to work on here, so let's go and hop out of both of these. Let's go and get in their cameras. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go and take a photo. So we did have the night mode activation here, which is honestly a better feature. Let's go and open up those photos. And kind of roughly around the same thing. It's funny how much the UI is still so similar on so many versions of Android that have been released between them. Well, let's go and get into some of these third-party apps now. That was kind of quick. So we can try something like, we could try Fruit Ninja. That might be the first one. And clearly, of course, I don't have it here. Let's go and try Temple Run 2, 3, 2, 1. I don't know why I'm now getting these two pop-ups on both these devices, but they were still loading up in the background. Funny enough, the S9 Plus is probably going to get into it faster. This could be because of a lot of different things. It's an older phone, older application on it probably, but that was very interesting. Let's go and hop out of these two. So we can get into another one. Let's get into something like Snake versus Blocks, 3, 2, 1. I don't know why these pop-ups have to keep coming up. And the S23 Plus was faster, but the S9 Plus was kind of right behind it, which is kind of funny. Getting into this game, pretty decent game on both. I mean, it doesn't seem like it's slowing down on either one. It's a pretty, lightweight game. Let's get into another application. Let's go and try something like, we have a lot of apps. Let's try Netflix, 3, 2, 1. Okay, of course we have two different pop-ups on both as well. Let's go into another one. Let's try Facebook, 3, 2, 1. So I don't know what's going on with all these pop-ups right now all of a sudden. Usually it's not having those many pop-ups, but it is what it is. Let's go into another application. Let's try something like Stack, 3, and of course I don't have it. Let's try something like the original Temple Run, 3, 2, 1. Okay, so this one might be a little bit easier to kind of tell which one's faster. And funny enough, I think the S9 Plus, I mean, they were almost identical. The S23 Plus was slightly ahead, but it was almost neck and neck between them two, which is actually pretty crazy. Let's get into another one. Let's try something like Thank You, 3, 2, 1. Okay, the S23 Plus has been in it for a little bit of time, and the S9 Plus was a little bit behind it. So, and definitely I think when it comes down to these two apps, or these two devices, the S23 Plus is going to be the faster, more optimized one. There were some times where the S9 Plus seemed to be faster, but again, that's usually, I mean, that could be due to a lot of different things out there. I wouldn't necessarily classify that as the S9 Plus being substantially faster. It just so happens that the S23 Plus, maybe the S9 Plus had an older version of that application. So that kind of covers it up there. Now in the cameras department, it's kind of an interesting thing too. So between both phones, the S23 Plus had a triple camera setup. So we have, a wide, ultra-wide, and telephoto lens. The S9 Plus has a wide and telephoto lens, so no ultra-wide camera on the S9 Plus, which was kind of an interesting choice. Now we have 4K capability on the back. We have 1440p on the front of the S9 Plus. We have 4K at 60 on the front of the S23 Plus. But we also have 8K capability on the back of the S23 Plus, which is pretty wild. Now with something like the S9 Plus, this camera, it's not a bad camera to be honest. It's actually still pretty decent. Zooming in capability, you do have quite a bit of zooming in, which is pretty good. How much is it? It's like 10x zoom, which is pretty good for a 2018 device. No ultra-wide camera though, which is kind of sad. The UI is still pretty decent. Like you're still getting several features built in. You have super slow-mo, you have live focus, you have pro mode, panorama mode, this food mode, which has always been weird. You have AR emojis, you have hyperlapse, which is really cool. It's a feature I use all the time. So those are some really cool features you have built in still on a phone like an S9 Plus. It's definitely not the most perfect, phone of all time in terms of the camera, but I think at that time it was pretty decent. It's actually held up fairly well, I would say, throughout the years. But a phone that's going to hold up better is the S23 Plus. This device, there's really no competition here. This phone is just going to be here for a long period of time. And the camera here, I mean, you have so many features built in, which is just so amazing. And it all stemmed from the S9 Plus. This is the older phone of this one, so of course we have to give this one some credit. This one has 30x zoom, which is a lot of amount of zoom to have on a phone. You have 0.6x zoom on the outside, which is also really cool. And as I mentioned, when you're getting a phone like this, you're going to have a lot of capability just from that. But you also have all these other modes. You have portrait mode, and under more, you have like just so many more modes under this type of device. So I would say that the S23 Plus is the better camera, but not only that, the S23 Plus is the better phone pretty much in general. Like you're getting just a way better device, you're getting better display, you're getting better build quality, you're getting better performance, better cameras, better battery life, software support still. Like this phone is clearly the better one in every area. There's not really a reason I would recommend buying an S9 Plus unless you wanted to collect dust somewhere, you want to like as a collector's item, or if you want it as like a separate gaming phone or something like that. Other than that, I really wouldn't recommend buying it because it's not supported with software and it's really only getting older. There's not really a huge lifespan ahead of this thing, to be honest. So that kind of covers it up there. If you have any other thoughts or questions, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace until then.